Late one night, I accompanied my boss drinking until I vomited. On the way home, I received a photo from my childhood friend, my wife sitting on some pretty boy's lap on a variety show. I confronted her about it, only to be called paranoid. She accused me of having a dark and dirty mind, claiming her actions were artistic and beyond my understanding. Okay, my wife used to be a car model, but she quit a year ago after we got married. Shortly after, she claimed she couldn't work due to pregnancy and stayed home doing nothing. I thought it was fine and agreed happily. I bought a house for us, even though the mortgage was heavy, but having a beautiful wife at home made the hard work and late nights at my sales job seem worth it. But soon, things turned unbearable. With regular late-night business dinners, I often didn't get home until after 9 p.m., stomach burning from all the alcohol and barely any food in my belly. I hoped to come home to a warm meal, but instead, she did nothing all day, just watching dramas and browsing the internet, complaining I came home too late and left her hungry. Fine. Tired as I was, I did the chores and cooked dinner, treating her like a queen. Yet, even then, I faced her cruel scrutiny every day without fail. Like interrogating a criminal, she questioned me endlessly, and I had to answer honestly. She even sniffed me for perfume. If there was any scent, it meant I was cheating. But in my line of work, it was inevitable. This scrutiny hurt the most. Finally, she demanded to check my phone. If I refused, she accused me of cheating and called me heartless. Even normal work communications with female clients were scrutinized word by word. But when I asked to check her phone, she coldly refused, accusing me of suspecting her. So, I worked hard at my job, only to come home feeling miserable. Life was tough and no peace. Then one day after work, she told me she wanted to join a variety show to relive her youth and pursue a career in fashion. I knew she always had a dream of being a star, enjoying the attention like a starlet. That's why she became a car model, to get famous. Initially, I wanted to object. The thought of my wife dressing revealingly in public made me uncomfortable. But she was adamant, and I thought maybe if she was busy with something, she wouldn't torment me like this. So, reluctantly, I agreed. She was thrilled. She started working out to get in shape. I thought she already looked great, but she wanted to make a splash on TV. The next day at work, I got a text alert about a big purchase. $2,000. She didn't work, so usually, she spent my money. But why would a gym membership cost so much? At lunch, I called her. She said on the phone, one membership is $1,000. The other one is for her girlfriend. She felt it was boring to work out alone, so she invited her girlfriend to join her and helped pay for it. Spending that much money seemed extravagant to me. I tried to gently remind her of our financial pressures, but she brushed me off with irritation and hung up. Luckily, she became less critical of me during her training sessions. When she returned home, she buried herself in her phone, ignoring me. On weekends, with nothing to do, I decided to visit the gym to see my wife. After all, with her beauty and figure, it was natural to worry about others noticing her. When I arrived, I found her lying on a yoga mat, letting a man massage her body. I couldn't bear it. Wasn't she supposed to have a female trainer? And this guy, flashy and lacking muscle, looked like a pretty boy, not at all like the personal trainers I knew. I stepped forward and pushed the man away. Seeing me, my wife quickly got up, a hint of panic on her face that she swiftly masked. Honey, you're here. Let me introduce you. This is my friend, Mark. She introduced me to the guy. Darling, this is my husband. You can call him James. A guy friend? When did she get a guy friend? I suppressed my anger, exchanged brief greetings with this guy, and then pulled my wife away. Back home, facing my questions, my wife gave her explanation. She had recently met this guy online, said he was reliable, and had special connections to a variety show. She got his gym card along with hers as a favor. As for what happened at the gym, her regular trainer had to leave briefly, and this guy was just helping her relax. There was nothing more to it. She said she would be more careful in the future. Can't you trust your wife more? Why are you so suspicious? In the end, I was turned against. I didn't want to argue further. Fine, let's leave it at that. But don't let this happen again. In the following days, amidst my busy schedule, I made several trips to the gym to check up on them. They still exchanged glances, subtly flirting with each other, but thankfully, I didn't catch them in any compromising situations again. As the deadline for the variety show approached, my wife prepared to go shopping for the show's outfits. Mark, who shared her interests and claimed professional connections to the show, naturally accompanied her. They chatted and laughed all the way, discussing things related to the show. I felt like a useless third wheel. In the store, they recommended clothes to each other, tried them on, and immediately sought each other's approval and comments, hardly noticing my presence. Only when it came to carrying bags and paying did my wife remember I was there. I became her assistant bag carrier and the dumbfounded sponsor. The show's clothes were expensive, and it was okay for me to pay for what my wife wore. But why should I foot the bill for what Mark bought? My wife's elbowing me out really frustrated me. But since she had spoken up, I couldn't refute her in public without embarrassing her. With her proud nature, she might even cause a scene. In less than an hour of shopping, she had spent nearly $5,000. Perhaps realizing she had spent too much, my wife said we should go home after one more purchase. I breathed a sigh of relief, feeling somewhat better. But what happened next nearly made me explode on the spot. Mark picked out a stunning outfit for my wife to try on, and she looked so beautiful in it that even I couldn't tear my eyes away. The outfit was outrageously expensive. The sales clerk praised Mark's taste and "Your husband really has an eye for fashion. I envy you." Frowning deeply at this awkward misunderstanding, all my wife needed to do was clarify on the spot. But she just smiled, admiring herself in the mirror. Mark modestly responded, but made no effort to explain. I couldn't take it anymore. I dropped all the bags and stormed out. I wasn't going to put up with this. Though I was furious, if my wife had chased after me and offered an apology, I might have let it go. Unfortunately, she didn't say a word to stop me as I left the mall. Walking on the street, simmering with anger, I received a notification of another $2,000 expenditure. Wow, even after I left, she didn't hesitate to max out my credit card. Spending my money openly flaunting affection with another man in public, I felt utterly trapped. I hadn't been home long before my wife returned. Unexpectedly, instead of facing my accusations, she blamed me first. "What got into you today? You almost embarrassed us." I burst out laughing, asking her why she didn't explain when the clerk mistook her for my wife. She replied casually, "What did the clerk say? I didn't hear." With that excuse, I was speechless. In the end, I was the one made out to be unreasonable. 3 days later, the variety show began. Dressed to the nines, my wife and Mark made a stunning entrance as a duo. I took a day off work to come and watch as an audience member. My wife, once a car model, expertly showed off her figure and beauty, becoming a focal point in the room. Mark's pretty boy demeanor also attracted attention. They presented themselves as a dazzling sight on the show. Seeing that they behaved themselves and were mindful of their public image, I gradually stopped accompanying them every time. Over time, I noticed my wife started paying excessive attention to her appearance. Whether going out or working out at the gym, she dressed to the nines and often stayed out late. Sometimes I couldn't help but call and ask, and she would either ignore me or criticize me, saying my own dirty mind led to my suspicions. Many times, she returned home and locked herself in the bedroom, claiming she was tired and sending me to sleep on the couch. I'm exhausted, both mentally and physically. On my birthday night, I came home early from work to prepare a feast and even got a custom cake. I wanted to take this opportunity to sit down and have a heart-to-heart talk with my wife, hoping to resolve the issues between us. But she didn't show up, even after the food got cold. I called her 3 times before she finally picked up. She seemed to have forgotten it was my birthday and said she was busy discussing a variety show. Later, she had a live stream and needed to prepare gifts for her fans, so she told me not to wait up and go to bed early. As I hung up, I heard a couple of soft, flirtatious mms from her, unmistakably in a flirty tone, and they were from my wife. I hung up the phone, ate the cake and the food in silence, but everything tasted like nothing. Looking at the home I worked so hard to build and maintain, I felt nothing but a cold emptiness. This doesn't feel like a home anymore. She didn't spend my birthday with me, her husband, but was giving her fans benefits and flirting with someone else. I began to lose hope in her. I turned off all the lights and sat in the dark living room. She came home at 2 a.m. "Why are you sitting here scaring me half to death?" she complained as she walked in, reeking of alcohol and a bit disheveled. I noticed a faint hickey on her neck. She saw my face, glanced at the cake, said a quick, "Happy birthday," and was about to go shower and sleep. "Sarah, let's get a divorce," I mustered up the courage to say. "What did you say?" She stopped, looking at me in disbelief. "Divorce," I repeated, staring at her calmly. When she realized I was serious, she started crying and shouting, pointing fingers and bringing up old grievances. "You ungrateful jerk. With my beauty, I could have easily married into a rich family. If it wasn't for getting pregnant, would I have married you, a mere salesperson? If it weren't for us having sex, would I have had a miscarriage? I gave you my youth. What can you possibly give me in return? You promised to love me forever when you were begging at my doorstep. Now, not even a year in, you found someone new? Let's go see what your parents have to say." Honestly, I never expected this. I had always tried to accommodate her over the years. She used to say she didn't blame me, that it was partly her fault too, but she never missed a chance to bring it up. The key issue now is she's trying to shift all the blame onto me without a hint of remorse or guilt for her actions. Seeing her about to make a scene, out of guilt for the past, I reluctantly backed down. We compromised. I didn't mention divorce again, and she didn't make me sleep on the couch that night. We lay in the same bed but far apart, like strangers. I thought maybe we could endure for a while, but I realized this marriage was already in crisis, and I was deeply troubled, unable to find a proper solution. I thought time would heal, but worse was yet to come. A week later, after a night of heavy drinking with my boss, I was feeling awful and vomiting the whole way home. On my way back, my friend Nate, who worked as an assistant on a variety show, sent me a photo. There she was, my wife, scantily dressed, lifting her skirt and straddling a handsome guy on stage. In the photo, she looked provocatively dressed, flirting with this guy. That guy wasn't just anyone. It was her best friend, Mark. Shameless. I exploded. Sneaking around was bad enough, but doing it so publicly was crossing the line. Fueled by alcohol, pain, and anger, I felt dizzy and collapsed. When I woke up, it was the next day, and I was in a hospital bed. The nurse said a kind stranger had brought me in, saving me from what could have been a fatal heart attack. The stranger had left without giving their name, but the nurse mentioned it was a beautiful girl. Grateful to this anonymous savior, I also felt a cold chill. I had been out all night, nearly died, and ended up in the hospital, yet my wife didn't care enough to call. The only notifications from her were charges on my credit card, over $3,000 in a day. Who knows if it was for her fans or her lover? I was done. I had to divorce this heartless, dirty woman. When I got home at 5 in the afternoon, she wasn't there. She returned at 9, heavily made up, cheerfully talking to her fans during a live stream. I motioned for her to turn it off. Noticing my expression, she ended the stream reluctantly after sending a few virtual kisses. "What's up?" she asked. I showed her the photo my friend had sent. I thought if she owned up and promised not to do it again, I might forgive her. But she casually dismissed it, saying, "What's the big deal? That's just how variety shows are." Her nonchalant attitude made me furious for the first time. "Sarah, don't treat me like a fool. Real variety shows are just performances. What you did was cheap sensationalism. Have some shame. If not for me, then for your parents." Instead of reflecting, she irrationally lashed out, calling me narrow-minded and accusing me of not understanding art. "You're defiling art," she yelled. "To hell with her art." I stormed out, meeting up with an old friend for drinks. If I didn't talk to someone, I feared I'd go mad. They say you shouldn't air your dirty laundry in public, but Nate, this childhood friend of mine, who I've known since we were kids, isn't just anyone. We sat at a street stall, drinking, and I started sharing everything that's happened over the past year. She's unfaithful, can't stand being alone, but won't let me have any female friends, not even chat with them. I come home exhausted every day, and she inspects me from head to toe like I'm a thief. She uses the excuse of having given up her career after getting pregnant, and then miscarrying to always keep me feeling guilty and working hard for her. She spends my hard-earned money without any limits and constantly belittles me, even when I became the top salesperson at my company. She says I'm still not good enough and that marrying me was a mistake. Everything she does is right, and I'm always wrong. If I don't comply, she claims I don't love her. I couldn't help but cry as I spoke. They say men don't cry easily, but that's only because they haven't been deeply hurt. After hearing me out, Nate patted my shoulder and said, "Don't blame yourself. This isn't your fault." Nate, my friend, who also works as an assistant on the variety show, told me he has seen enough to understand her character. He said my wife constantly degrades me to boost her own ego and give herself endless freedom to do as she pleases. He called her a selfish hypocrite with a twisted sense of control. She never loved you. The sooner you end this, the better, or she'll destroy you. Nate's words hit me hard. He was right. She probably never loved me. No matter how hard I tried or how good I was to her, it was useless. Though I still couldn't understand why she chose to marry me in the first place, I knew this marriage had to end, and quickly. If she was that unreasonable, I needed solid evidence to get her to agree to a divorce. Without hard evidence, she wouldn't agree to a divorce. After all, aside from me, it would be hard for her to find someone else to pamper her, let her control him, and work like a cash cow. After discussing it with Nate, we planned our approach. First, I needed to gather concrete evidence of her infidelity. To avoid raising her suspicions, I kept working as usual, acting angry yet resigned. She continued her usual behavior, leaving early and coming home late, and started giving me the cold shoulder. I pretended to be the doormat, maintaining the status quo. I installed hidden cameras in every room while she was out. Then I faked a 5-day business trip, even asking her to book a train ticket for me to make it more believable. Surprisingly, she was unusually agreeable this time, happy to help with the booking and even acting affectionate. She probably wanted to make sure I was actually leaving. I set off as planned, monitoring everything remotely. Instead of going on a business trip, I took some leave and went to Mark's hometown to dig up dirt on him. Mark's background info was obtained through Nate's contacts at the variety show. That very night, she brought Mark home. They engaged in all sorts of indecent acts, even talking about how I was boring and uninteresting. Having gathered enough evidence, I didn't need to watch anymore. My wife and Mark thought they could fool me, but they were wrong. I wanted to ruin them both. Next, I started gathering more dirt on Mark in his hometown. Nate helped me compile contact details for all of Mark's ex-girlfriends. We planned a reunion to expose him. Back home, I pretended nothing had happened, acting apologetic and busy at work. She continued her routine, unaware. On her birthday, I set the trap. I told her I'd be working late and wouldn't be home, wishing her a happy birthday. In reality, I had invited my parents, her parents, and her close friends for a surprise birthday party for her. You can guess what happened next. She and Mark, caught red-handed in front of everyone. Nate even live-streamed the whole thing. Her parents were furious, slapping her in front of everyone. She cried on the floor, while Mark fled in disgrace. Later, we met in court and divorced. She called me cruel and manipulative, saying I ruined her reputation. She vowed to find a better husband and live a better life, one that would make me regret losing her. Mark tried to intimidate me, but I ignored them. From then on, she was no longer my concern. I decided not to engage with them anymore, letting them be the clowns they were. I held back, hesitating on whether to deliver the final blow. Who would have thought that after the divorce, those two wouldn't leave me alone? They started harassing me even more. Sarah spread rumors about me, saying I abandoned her and made up lies about me. She even maliciously reported to my company and clients that I had inappropriate relationships with clients. If it weren't for my good reputation and strong performance, I might have lost my job. Even so, my performance dipped, and I lost several deals. Mark was even worse. He bragged online about being the perfect man, treating women with utmost care, which was why he won Sarah. His arrogance was a clear provocation. A few weeks later, I received a wedding invitation from Sarah and Mark. They delivered it personally, inviting me to witness their happiness and humiliate me. I smiled and said I'd be there, and they left hand in hand. Their quick wedding was unexpected, but it was the perfect opportunity for my revenge. I gathered 7 women Mark had deceived. Some were conned out of money, others were duped into fake marriages, and some even had children out of wedlock. At the wedding, these women confronted Mark, creating chaos. From a distance, I saw panic flash across Mark's face. He wanted to escape, but Sarah wouldn't let him, fearing embarrassment. I left the scene, moved to a new place, and changed jobs, cutting all ties with those vile people. But I believe that no rest for the wicked.